Hasan Manto, that is Toba Singh, which I had been uh, doing yesterday. Now I give a short introduction on Sadat Hasan Manto, and I said how he is regarded as one of the uh, well-known writers on partition literature, along with such writers as Visham Sahani, Amrita Pritam, Khushwant Singh, and other writers who have contributed their short stories and novels. Now, this particular short story was published in 1955. Sadat Hasan Manto actually had a very short life. He, but by the time he died, he had written a number of very forceful and very evocative accounts of the partition and its aftermath. So let us look at the short story. Okay, so here is the short story Toba Singh, and let us begin the short story. A couple of years after the partition of the country, it occurred to the respective governments of India and Pakistan that inmates of lunatic asylums, like prisoners, should also be exchanged. So this short story is set in the year 1949. We know that India and Pakistan, they both gained their independence in 1947, now in the month of August, and the story begins in 1949 after 2 years have passed. And very interestingly, what happens here is the fact that the governments of India and Pakistan, they have exchanged the prisoners after the partition of the country, and now they decided on a novel project, and that was that they would exchange the mad people, the lunatics. So the Muslim lunatics, they would be sent to Pakistan, and the Hindu and the Sikh lunatics, they would be sent to India. Whether this was a reasonable or an unreasonable idea is difficult to say. One thing, however, is clear. It took many conferences of important officials from the two sides to come to this decision. So the writer reserves his comment. The writer reserves his comment on whether this was a wise decision that the two governments had taken, but it was a fact that the officials, the high-ranking officials of the two governments, they had been having meetings for a long time, and a number of meetings or conferences had gone by before this decision was taken. Final details like the date of actual exchange were carefully worked out. So the final details actually, like the date of when this exchange would be taking place, that was to be decided later. So the date would be decided later. Muslim lunatics whose families were still residing in India were to be left undisturbed. The rest moved to the border for the exchange. So some Muslim lunatics who were there, their families were still in India. They had not gone to Pakistan, but they would not be disturbed. But the people whose relatives had migrated to Pakistan from India, they would be uh, allowed to go to Pakistan. The situation in Pakistan was slightly different, since almost the entire population of Hindus and Sikhs had already migrated to India. The question of keeping non-Muslim lunatics in Pakistan did not, therefore, arise. So the relatives of these Sikh and Hindu lunatics, they had already gone to India. So obviously the lunatic people, they would have to be moved. While it is not known what the reaction in India was when the news reached the Lahore lunatic asylum, it immediately became the subject of heated discussion. So the writer says that in the Lahore lunatic asylum, that is the setting here, the lunatics there, they became disturbed. Some of them became disturbed. Some of them were very curious as to the nature of this exchange, when it would be held, and a lot of discussion, animated conversation and discussion were going on. One Muslim lunatic, a regular reader of the fire-eating daily newspaper Zamindar, when asked what Pakistan was, replied after deep reflection, quote, "The name of a place in India where cutthroat razors are manufactured," unquote. So this particular Muslim lunatic, he had the habit of reading this very, this politically charged newspaper called Zamindar, and he thought for a long time, and then he said that Pakistan was actually a place in India, and there these razors, these sharp razors were manufactured, which were then used to cut the throats of people. So obviously a very funny kind of a reply. This profound observation was received with visible satisfaction, but the people who heard this explanation, they were really quite satisfied. A Sikh lunatic asked another Sikh, "Sardarji, why are we being sent to India? We don't even know the language they speak in that country." So here another lunatic, this time a Sikh lunatic, he asked his brother Sikh uh, uh, the question that why were they being sent to India? He had the impression that India was a strange land, and the languages that were spoken there would not match what they knew. So they would not be able to communicate if they were sent to India. The man smiled. "I know the language of the Hindostoras. These devils always strut about as if they were the lords of the earth." So the man spoken to, he smiled knowingly, that he said, "No, I know the language of the Hindostoras, and they are like the devils." So they are very evil people, and they have the impression, or they show the impression, that they are the lords of the earth. So they are very high and mighty. They think they are very high and mighty. One day, a Muslim lunatic, while taking his bath, raised the slogan "Pakistan Zindabad" with such enthusiasm that he lost his footing and was later found lying on the floor, unconscious. So all kinds of incidents and conversations were taking place. So this person, he was taking his bath, but somehow or the other, in his excitement, he fell down and he hurt himself and he became unconscious. Not all inmates were mad. Now, there were certain people there in this Lahore lunatic asylum who were not mad. Some were perfectly normal, except that they were murderers. So some of the murderers were lodged there for some unknown reason. To spare them the hangman's noose, their families had managed to get them committed after bribing officials down the line. Actually, they were not mad. They were quite sane. But uh, if a person is declared to be a mad person, even after committing a crime like murder, then obviously the judge would not uh, sort of give him the death sentence or anything like a capital punishment like that. So the families of these people, they had tried to they had bribed the officials, and they had made arrangements for these people to stay in this lunatic asylum. They probably had a vague idea why India was being divided and what Pakistan was, but as for the present situation, they were equally clueless. These people, they knew why the partition was taking place and what Pakistan was, because they were not mad. But why the lunatic people were being exchanged, that was not clear to them. Newspapers were no help either, and the asylum guards were ignorant, if not illiterate. So uh, these people, they could not get any information by reading the newspapers. And the asylum guards, they were really stupid people, and some of them were illiterate, so of course they could not answer the questions that were put to them. Nor was there anything to be learned by eavesdropping on their conversations. So eavesdropping is listening uh, to the conversations of others secretly. So some of the prisoners, the lunatics, they perhaps tried to do that, but there was no progress. They could not learn anything worthwhile. Some said there was this man by the name Muhammad Ali Jinnah, or the Qaid-e-Azam, who had set up a separate country for Muslims called Pakistan. So this was, of course, the correct information, because Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was the leader of the Muslim League, and he was known as the Qaid-e-Azam. Now, of course, the he had set up this country for Muslims, and that was known as Pakistan. As to where Pakistan was located, the inmates knew nothing. They knew that a country called Pakistan had been created, but where was it? That was why both the mad and the partially mad were unable to decide whether they were now in India or in Pakistan. So obviously, if they did not know about the exact location of Pakistan, they could not understand that this particular place, whether it had fallen to Pakistan or to India. So that could not be decided upon. If they were in India, where on earth was Pakistan? And if they were in Pakistan, then how come that until only the other day it was India? So these were confusing questions which could not be answered by anyone. So if they were in India, so where was Pakistan located? They wanted to know, but there was no answer. And if they were in Pakistan, then how come it was in India? A little, even a few months back, perhaps a few years back, 1 or 2 years back. So in their confused state, they could not understand anything. One inmate had got so badly caught up in this Pakistan-India rigmarole that one day, while sweeping the floor, he dropped everything, climbed the nearest tree, and installed himself on a branch, from which vantage point he spoke for 2 hours on the delicate problem of India and Pakistan. So now this person was really confused, and one day he was sweeping the floor. He was given this job perhaps, or he was doing it on his own. Now he dropped all his clothes and he uh, ran to the tree and launched himself from there and started to deliver a lecture for 2 hours. And he was speaking on the problem of India and Pakistan. The guards asked him to get down. Instead, he went a branch higher, and when threatened with punishment, declared, quote, "I wish to live neither in India nor in Pakistan. I wish to live in this tree," unquote. So this particular man decided that he was not going to come down, even though the guards threatened him. No, I do not want to go to India, or I do not want to live in Pakistan. I want to live in this tree. When he was finally persuaded to come down, he began embracing his Sikh and Hindu friends, tears running down his cheeks, fully convinced that they were about to leave him and go to India. So now he was finally persuaded by the authorities to come down, and then he became very emotional, and he started to embrace his Sikh and Hindu friends, and he thought that they were going to leave him because they had to go to India. A Muslim radio engineer who had an MSc degree and never mixed with anyone, given as he was to taking long walks by himself all day, was so affected by the current debate that one day he took all his clothes off, gave the bundle to one of the attendants, and ran into the garden stark naked. So all these things were happening. Now this Muslim radio engineer, actually he was very well educated because he had an MSc degree, he was an engineer. But somehow or the other, though he was lunatic, actually he had this feeling that he was a bit different from the others, and that is why perhaps he did not mix with anyone. He didn't. He kept to himself. Now he also was affected by this, and getting stark naked, he ran into the garden. So all these things started to happen. A Muslim lunatic from Chaniat, who used to be one of the most devoted workers of the All India Muslim League and obsessed with bathing himself 15 or 16 times a day, had suddenly stopped doing that and announced his name was Muhammad Ali, that he was Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So another funny thing was that this person, this is a place in most probably Pakistan, Chaniat. Now he was a worker in the All India Muslim League, and he had this strange habit of bathing 15 or 16 times a day. So it was really very strange that this person, he was really, he used to bathe 15 or 16 times a day. So normal people would bathe perhaps just once or twice during the summer season, perhaps. But this person was really different. And he declared himself to be Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This had led Sikh inmate to declare himself Master Tara Singh, the leader of the Sikhs. So again, another Sikh person, he then declared himself to be Master Tara Singh, who was the leader of the Sikhs. Apprehending serious communal trouble, the authorities declared them dangerous and shut them up in separate cells. So the authorities were fearing that some kind of fight would break out, and they had to be separated. So these things were being observed in this Lahore lunatic asylum. There was a young Hindu lawyer from Lahore who had gone off his head after an unhappy love affair. When told that Amritsar was to become a part of India, he went into a depression because his beloved lived in Amritsar, something he had not forgotten even in his madness. So this young Hindu lawyer from Lahore, actually, he had an unhappy love affair, and that had turned him mad. He has lost his senses. Now, he was told that Amritsar, which was in Punjab, it was going to become a part of India. But this did not cheer him up, because he remembered that his beloved lived in Amritsar. He still remembered that, though he had gone mad. That day, he abused every major and minor Hindu and Muslim leader who had cut India into two, turning his beloved into an Indian and him into a Pakistani. So it was a very distressing thought for him that his beloved was to remain in India while he was to be in Pakistan. He did not know that he would be deported, so he thought like this. When news of the exchange reached the asylum, his friends offered him congratulations because he was now to be sent to India, the country of his beloved. However, he declared that he had no intention of leaving Lahore because his practice would not flourish in Amritsar. But this Hindu lawyer, actually, he had to go to India. That was the decision taken by the authorities, but he was not really looking forward to it. Why? Because he had been living in Lahore, and he thought, since he was a lawyer, and he thought that if he went to Amritsar, his practice would suffer because he would not be able to make so much money. Of course, he was mad, and he was living in this lunatic asylum. He was not really practicing, but he thought like this. So we can see so many examples how Manto has given us all these examples of these mad people, how they were behaving, uh, and they were doing really strange things. There were two Anglo-Indian lunatics in the European world. When told that the British had decided to go home after granting independence to India, they went into a state of deep shock and were seen conferring with each other in whispers the entire afternoon. So these two Anglo-Indian lunatics, they were not Indians, but they were there. Now, they learned the fact that the British had gone back to England and India was now independent. Now they were really very afraid, and they were shocked to hear this. So they did not know what would happen to them. So they started to plan about their future. They were worried about their changed status after independence. Would there be a European world, or would it be abolished? Would breakfast continue to be served, or would they have to subsist on bloody Indian chapati? So they were really apprehensive. They did not know whether they would, you know, uh, they would be allowed to live in a European world, or would there be a common world? And they were not used to Indian breakfast, so they did not want to eat Indian chapati, bloody Indian chapati. So they hated Indian food. So of course that was really a cause for concern. There was another inmate, a Sikh, who had been confined for the last 15 years. Now we come to the principal or the chief character of this story. And he was a Sikh person, and he was there for the last 15 years. Whenever he spoke, it was the same mysterious gibberish. And he did not speak much, but when he spoke, he used to say this very incomprehensible these words, quote, Upar the gurgur the annex the be dhayana the mung the dal of the laltain, unquote. So this is really you cannot make any sense of what actually he was saying, but it was the the speech of this person. God said he had not slept a wink in 15 years. and that was a remarkable thing, that he had always remained awake. Occasionally, he could be observed leaning against a wall, but the rest of the time he was always to be found standing. And that was another remarkable feature of this man. He was always standing. He had not lied down, or he had not slept. He would be found sometimes, perhaps he would be leaning against a wall, but he would not be sleeping, or he would not sit down even. Uh, because of this, his legs were permanently swollen, something that did not appear to bother him. So obviously, if one continued to stand for all these years, which was really a very difficult thing to do, then one's legs would suffer. Now, yes, something that did not appear to bother him, but he was not bothered about that. He ignored the pain. Recently, he had started to listen carefully to discussions about the forthcoming exchange of Indian and Pakistani lunatics. Now, for the last few weeks, for the last few days, he had been listening to the conversations that the others were having, and they were talking about this exchange, the exchange of lunatics. So they were actually talking about this, and this person, he has not been named now, he listened to them, and when asked his opinion, he observed solemnly, "Upur the gurgur the annex the bedhayana the mung the dal of the government of Pakistan." Now, previously he used to say mung the dal of the laltan. Now he says the government of Pakistan. So only that the phrase of was substituted by the government of Pakistan, but the other words, they were completely incomprehensible, could not be understood by anyone. Of late, however, the government of Pakistan had been replaced by the government of Toba Singh, a small town in the Punjab, which was his home. Now, this person was actually from this small village called Toba Singh. So, Toba Singh was actually the name of a small village in Punjab. He had also begun inquiring where Toba Singh was to go. However, nobody was quite sure whether it was in India or Pakistan. Now, he was naturally feeling curious, and he had asked people that whether Toba Singh was to be included within Pakistan, or whether it was to go to India. But the problem was, no one could tell him. Those who had tried to solve this mystery had become utterly confused when told that Sialkot, which used to be in India, was now in Pakistan. So obviously, Sialkot is a city in Pakistan, and originally it was in undivided India, so now it was in Pakistan. So people got confused. It was anybody's guess what was going to happen to Lahore, which was currently in Pakistan, but could slide into India any moment. So the same thing might happen in case of Lahore. It might go to India. It was also possible that the entire subcontinent of India might become Pakistan. So that was another thing that was being discussed. So all kinds of opinions, all kinds of observations were being bandied about. And who could say if both India and Pakistan might not entirely vanish from the map of the world one day? And that was also a possibility. So obviously, all these people in the lunatic asylum, they started to discuss about all these things. Really they were very confused. The old man's hair was almost gone, and what little was left had become a part of the beard, giving him a strange, even frightening appearance. Now we get the description of this person. He had very little hair, and he was of course bearded, but he was he had a very kind of a frightening look. However, he was a harmless fellow. and had never been known to get into fights. Older attendants at the asylum said that he was a fairly prosperous landlord from Toba Tek Singh who had quite suddenly gone mad. His family had brought him in bound and fettered. That was 15 years ago. So this person actually was quite a well-off person. He was rich. He had been a rich landlord from this village called Toba Tek Singh in Punjab. And but suddenly one day, without any warning or anything like that, he had gone mad and he had become violent, it seems. So he was brought into this asylum in Lahore, bound and fettered, that is in chains, so that he would not be able to harm anyone. And that had occurred 15 years ago. Once a month, he used to have visitors, but since the start of communal troubles in the Punjab, they had stopped coming. Now, his relatives would be visiting him from Punjab, but of late, due to the partition, there were communal troubles in Punjab, and therefore the relatives could not come. His real name was Bishan Singh, but everybody called him Toba Tek Singh. So that is the name, Bishan Singh. But he had come to be called Toba Tek Singh because he was from the village of Toba Tek Singh. He lived in a kind of limbo, having no idea what day of the week it was, or month, or how many years had passed since his confinement. So he was in a kind of a state of confusion. He did not know anything about the day of the week, the month, how many years he had been living there, nothing at all. However, he had developed a sixth sense about the day of the visit, when he used to bathe himself, soap his body, oil and comb his hair, and put on clean clothes. Now, in a very strange way, when the day arrived when one of his relatives would be coming to meet him in the asylum, he would clean himself up and he would put on clean clothes. And that was really strange because no one told him. So he had a kind of a sixth sense, as it seemed. He never said a word during these meetings, except occasional outbursts of those words, Upar the Gurgur the Annex, the Bedhayana, the Mung, the Dal of the Laltan. So that was his pet phrase, the sentence that he used to speak out. And that was really all that he said to his relatives. He did not really talk with them. When he was first confined, he had left an infant daughter behind, now a pretty young girl of 15. So he had a daughter who was an infant when he had gone mad. And now, after 15 years, of course, she was 15 years old and she was a pretty young girl. She would come occasionally and sit in front of him with tears rolling down her cheeks. In the strange world that he inhabited, hers was just another face. So, of course, Bishan Singh or Toba Tek Singh, he could not recognize his daughter. Of course, nobody told him perhaps, but even if anyone had told him, he would not. It would have not made any difference, perhaps. And his daughter knew that this was his father. This was her father, and obviously she was really sad to see him in this state. Since the start of this India-Pakistan caboodle, he had got into the habit of asking fellow inmates where exactly Toba Tek Singh was, without receiving a satisfactory answer, because nobody knew. Now, he was curious. He wanted to know about Toba Tek Singh. The visits had also suddenly stopped. He was increasingly restless, but more than that, curious. So the people, the people from his family, they had stopped coming because of the communal tension. And he could not meet anyone. He did not know what to do. whom to ask. He could not get any answers, and he became really restless. But he wanted to know. He became curious. The sixth sense, which used to alert him to the day of the visit, had also atrophied. So when these people, they had stopped coming to see him, his sixth sense had been lost. Atrophied meaning it had become less and less. It was not so sharp. He missed his family, the gifts they used to bring, and the concern with which they used to speak to him. So, though he did not talk much, he only said those words, nonsensical words. Still, he now started to miss his family. He was sure they would have told him whether Toba Tek Singh was in India or Pakistan. He also had a feeling that they came from Toba Tek Singh, where he used to have his home. So he had a feeling that yes, they were there in Toba Tek Singh, and from there they are coming to meet him. One of the inmates had declared himself God, so another lunatic. Now he declared himself God. Bishan Singh asked him one day if Toba Tek Singh was in India or Pakistan. Now, of course, God should know everything. God is omniscient. And therefore, Toba Tek Singh hoped that this person who had declared himself to be a god, so he would be able to answer. The man chuckled, quote, neither in India nor in Pakistan, because so far we have issued no orders in this respect, unquote. So obviously he was a clever lunatic. He himself did not know whether Toba Tek Singh was in India or Pakistan, and so he just chuckled, that is laughed, and he made this comment, this really mysterious comment, that we have not decided, or we have not issued, the gods have not issued any orders as to the location of Toba Tek Singh. Bishan Singh begged God to issue the necessary orders so that his problem could be solved, but he was disappointed as God appeared to be preoccupied with more pressing matters. So this person who declared himself to be God, he did not listen to Toba Tek Singh's entreaties. Toba Tek Singh really wanted to know this, because he was really he was at a loss, but this person paid no attention to him. Finally he told him angrily, ऊपर थे गुरगुर थे अनेक्स the मूंग the dal of Guruji the Khalsa and Guruji ki fateh jo bole so nihal sat sri akal, unquote. So this is what he ultimately shouted to this person. So this is, as you know, that the Sikhs, they have their Sikh gurus, and obviously this is something they say. So that was something he shouted out. What he wanted to say was, you don't answer my prayers because you are a Muslim god. Had you been a Sikh god, you would have been more of a sport. So most probably he wanted to say this, that since you are a Muslim god, you are not listening to me. If you had been a Sikh god, you have been sympathetic towards me. A few days before the exchange was to take place, one of Bishan Singh's Muslim friends from Toba Tek Singh came to see him, the first time in 15 years. Now, this friend, he came to see Bishan Singh. Bishan Singh looked at him once and turned away, until a guard said to him, this is your old friend, Fazl Din. He has come all the way to meet you. Now, of course, Bishan Singh could not recall his old friend. And the guards, one guard then told him that this was his friend, Fazl Din. And he wanted to talk to you. Bishan Singh looked at Fazl Din and began to mumble something. Fazl Din placed his hand on his friend's shoulder and said, quote, I have been meaning to come for some time to bring you news. All your family is well and has gone to India safely. I did what I could to help. Your daughter, Roop Kaur, he hesitated. she is safe too in India. So Fazluddin then gave some news to Bishan Singh that his family members, they are now in India because they have migrated to India and they are well. And his daughter's name was is Rup Kaur. He hesitated. She is safe too. She is in India. Bishan Singh kept quiet. Fazl then continued. Your family wanted me to make sure you were well. Soon you will be moving to India. What can I say? Except that you should remember me to Bhai Balbir Singh, Bhai Vadhwa Singh, and Bahen Amrit Kaur. So these people, they were actually the inhabitants of Toba Singh. And Fazl Din, of course, as he had lived there earlier, he used to know them well. So he said that you should remember me to all these people. Tell Bhai Bibir Singh that Fazl Din is well by the grace of God. The two brown buffaloes he left behind are well too. Both of them gave birth to calves, but unfortunately one of them died after 6 days. Say, I think of them often and to write to me if there is anything I can do, unquote. So all these news about the village life, so all these were communicated to Bishan Singh. So Fazluddin was talking to Bishan Singh. Then he added, here, I brought you some rice krispies from home. Bishan Singh took the gift and handed it to one of the guards. Where is Toba Singh? He asked. Now, Bishan Singh, all this time, he was thinking about only one thing, about Toba Singh. That is, the location of Toba Singh. So he was not really listening. Then he asked Fazluddin, where is Toba Singh? Where? Why? It is where it has always been. So Fazluddin was really surprised. It has been in Toba Singh, in India or in Pakistan? Bishan Singh asks. In India? No, in Pakistan. Now, Fazluddin also, first he says India, then he says in Pakistan. Without saying another word, Bishan Singh walked away, murmuring that particular phrase, that line, Upar the Gurgur the annex the Bidhayana the Mung the Dal of the Pakistan and Hindustan, Dur Fitte Mon. So this was really another, some additions were there, Pakistan and Hindustan, and all kind of Fitte Mon. So again, he was not satisfied with the answer because he understood that Fazluddin appeared to be confused. Meanwhile, exchange arrangements were rapidly getting finalized. Lists of lunatics from the two sides had been exchanged between the governments, and the date of transfer fixed. So all the planning was completed, and the day was fixed. On a cold winter evening, buses full of Hindu and Sikh lunatics, accompanied by armed police and officials, began moving out of the Lahore asylum towards Wagha, the dividing line between India and Pakistan. So now the buses that were deporting the Sikhs and the Hindus, they were going towards the Wagha border. Senior officials from the two sides in charge of exchange arrangements met, signed documents, and the transfer got underway. So the process started. It was quite a job getting the men out of the buses and handing them over to officials. Some just refused to leave. Those who were persuaded to do so began to run pell-mell in every direction. Some were stark naked. All efforts to get them to cover themselves had failed because they couldn't be kept from tearing off their garments. Some were shouting abuse or singing. Others were weeping bitterly. Many fights broke out. So it was a real pandemonium that was going on here. And of course, some of the inmates, they were all lunatics, so they were behaving in that way. And the officials, the people there, the guards, they had a real job controlling them. In short, complete confusion prevailed. Female lunatics were also being exchanged, and they were even noisier. It was bitterly cold. So both male and female lunatics were being exchanged. So it was a very cold winter evening when all this was happening. Most of the inmates appeared to be dead set against the entire operation. So most of them had lived there in the Lahore asylum. They knew that it was their home. So they did not want to go to India. They simply could not understand why they were being forcibly removed, thrown into buses and driven to this strange place. There were slogans of Pakistan Zindabad and Pakistan Murdabad, followed by fights. So again, utter confusion was raging. When Bishan Singh was brought out and asked to give his name so that it could be recorded in a register, he asked the official behind the desk, "Where is Toba Tek Singh? In India or Pakistan?" So again, that question is asked. "Pakistan," he answered with a vulgar laugh. Bishan Singh tried to run, but was overpowered by the Pakistani guards, who tried to push him across the dividing line towards India. So when he heard that Toba Tek Singh was in Pakistan, he tried to run away. However, he wouldn't move. They were trying to push him. "This is Toba Tek Singh," he announced. "Upar the Gurgur the annex the Bidhayana Mung the Dal of Toba Tek Singh and Pakistan." So he was convinced that this was Toba Tek Singh. It was not the Lahore lunatic asylum. Many efforts were made to explain to him that Toba Tek Singh had already been moved to India, or would be moved immediately, but it had no effect on Bishan Singh. The guards even tried force, but soon gave up. Now, many people came and they tried to tell him that no, Toba Tek Singh would be moved to India. But Bishan Singh was not ready to listen to them. And even they tried to move him forcibly, but that was not really possible. There he stood in no man's land on his swollen legs like a colossus. So he was in a no man's land. He did not belong either to India or to Pakistan. He was not prepared to go to India. Since he was a harmless old man, no further attempt was made to push him into India. He was allowed to stand where he wanted while the exchange continued. The night wore on. So they understood that he would not become violent or anything like that. So he was allowed to stand there. Let him stand there. They had other jobs to do of deporting the other inmates. Just before sunrise, Bishan Singh, the man who had stood on his legs for 15 years, screamed, and as officials from the two sides rushed towards him, he collapsed to the ground. So this was just when the sun was to rise. He cried out, he shouted, and he fell to the ground. There, behind barbed wire on one side, lay India, and behind more barbed wire on the other side lay Pakistan. In between, on a bit of earth which had no name, lay Toba Tek Singh. So this is the end of the story, and how Bishan Singh or Toba Tek Singh, he dies in the end, and he cannot be moved. He dies in that no man's land. He had been born and brought up in Toba Tek Singh, which was in Punjab. He was there in the Lahore lunatic asylum after he became mad. He had lived there for 15 years. And when the transportation or deportation was to take place, ultimately, it was not possible for the authorities to, to move him to India. So this is the story. This is really a very poignant and sad story that Sadat Hasan Manto has written. He has really portrayed the condition, the pitiful condition of people, of these lunatics who had been there and who had been, this plan of exchange was going on. So we come to the end of this story.